Again, welcome to this session, which is titled Funding Your Creative Endeavors. Few pointers on navigation. If you want to navigate to other sessions occasionally during this time block, please click in the upper left-hand corner where it says Schedule Session 1 of, and a drop-down menu will show all of the sessions available at this 2 o'clock section. Feel free to interact with each other in the chat located at the right hand of the screen. If you have a question and you'd like that answered, please use the Ask a Question module at the bottom of the screen. And be sure to upvote questions to help us get to the ones that are greatest interest to everyone. Okay, without further ado, Stan, Rochelle Robinson, we welcome you to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome, everyone. We're so happy to be here, and thank you for attending the Funding Your Creative Endeavors workshop. Before we get started, we want to go over some housekeeping. First and foremost, we want to give a special shout out to the Maryland Citizens for the Arts for inviting us to host this event, and also special thanks to our co-host, Elizabeth McLean, who will be helping us throughout this workshop. If you have questions throughout this process, throughout the workshop, please send all questions using the Ask a Question tab, which is located on your lower right hand. We will try our best to get through every question at the end of the session. We have a jam-packed schedule for you all, and so we want to make sure that we get to everything. And so we have allocated some time at the very end to address any questions. If we, by chance, do not get to your question, this segment will be recorded and will be available to you for download, and we will be making sure that we address all questions post the workshop. Okay, so if you are just joining us, please enter your name and where you're from in the chat, and we also have a poll. If you are an artist, we would like to know what art discipline. So in the poll section, if you can please enter your discipline, whether it's visual arts, performing arts, literary art, or new media. All right, so a little bit about our company, our organization, Substantial Art and Music. We were founded in 2017. We are currently based in our home in Alexandria, Virginia, but we have offices actually located in Prince George's County, inside the Creative Suitland Arts Center, which is also located again in Prince George's County and is a project of Joe's Movement Emporium. And so we've been there for about the last 3 or 4 months. We are a consulting agency. We provide consulting services to the arts and music sector, to creatives, to creative entrepreneurs. We provide primarily assistance with social media marketing, graphic design, logo, branding, as well as funding. And so that's a little bit about our company, a little bit about ourselves. I obtained a BFA from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I met my husband, Substantial, Stan Robinson. My background is in fashion design. However, I've also have experience in publications, working with the Not magazine, as well as Le Book, which is an art database. In addition to that, I have experience working in theater as a wardrobe supervisor for Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, Ailey 2 to be exact. I also have experience in education, working with DCPS, as well as Covenant House, Washington. And most recently, before forming our own company, I was with the Arts Fairfax, formerly Arts Council of Fairfax, as their grants manager. So a well-rounded background. And Stan?
Yeah, so I also attended Pratt Institute, where I majored in graphic design in Brooklyn, New York. But outside of working in visual art, I also work in the music industry. I've been a professional hip hop artist for roughly just over 20 years, getting my start in Tokyo, Japan with Hideout Productions. Rest in peace to the late, great Nujabes, who produced music for the TV show Samurai Champloo. I've also licensed songs to Bentley Motors, Ford Motors, Uber, and currently teach at Omega School in Rockville, Maryland. I teach a music business 101 class there, and also a digital distribution class. Have been consulting as a company. We've been consulting for roughly 3 years, but obviously we've been working in the arts for over 20, with just a wide range of experience working with various different types of creatives from all around the world. So, you know, we're excited to share this information with you all, because we are definitely, when it comes to working as independents, we just, it's something that it's an area that we know, although we've done business with a lot of major companies and a lot of small companies. We've always enjoyed working on our own as independents, so we can have full creative control and be able to use our influence in the way that we see fit. You know, so that's a little
I've
bit
got
about
some
us.
poll results, guys, if you're ready.
Okay.
Sure.
We have a predominant discipline in performing arts, 59.4%.
Great.
Next is visual art at 31.3%, and literary arts 9.1%. Although I'm seeing a good number of people using the chat to describe their areas, and we have a lot of diversity going on there.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
great.
So
Awesome.
I'm going to close
Awesome.
this poll and make the slides bigger to see.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to go into the next slide, which is the objective for today. We're just going to wait on that, Liz, when you get a moment.
There you go.
Okay, so the agenda, so that everyone knows what we're going to be going over today. So we have, we'll have the objective, which I'll go over briefly. Then we'll go right into the grant opportunities that are available, giving some background there, crowdfunding, passive income and monetization, and then we'll go into Q&A. And then we've also listed a series of additional resources and as well as our available services. So yeah, without further ado, because we have a lot to cover and I want to make sure that we get a chance to go over everything and then also be able to address any questions that you might have. We do have a poll as well for grants. So if you are have applied for a grant or a grant recipient or have been awarded or still pending, please feel free to let us know in the poll your status with that, just your familiarity with grants. Okay.
Yep, the poll is visible, so.
Okay. If you could go back to the objective, Liz, I'm sorry. I
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
Are you seeing it?
Not yet. Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay. And if you could make it a little bit bigger for me. Thank you. All right. So basically our objective for today is to provide our community with tools and strategies to strategically seek and prepare you for grant opportunities, develop crowdfunding campaigns, as well as create passive income. So we're going to make sure that we cover those 3 segments in this presentation. All right. Now we're going to get started with grants. And again, if you guys could just in the poll, enter your status with that or your familiarity with grants. So types of grants, typically for individuals as well as arts organizations, you have grants that are available to you on the local level, state, federal, as well as from foundations. For organizations, you're eligible for nonprofit organization, that is, you're eligible for what's called operating support grant, which is a grant that helps you or assists you with your general operating expenses. Next, you'll have organizational and professional development or technical grants. These grants are for those that are interested in attending conferences or are looking for equipment, technical equipment, laptops, computers. So there are grants that are available to you for that. Project support is typically for specific either events or projects, whether it's a mural, whether it's a new dance production, that is a grant that's available to you. And then we have individual grants. Typically individual grants are merit-based. You don't have to necessarily complete a job or a project. It's basically based on your experience and your accomplishments. And then lastly, we have Arts in Education, which is a grant for those that are educators or providing some form of classes or education. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so typically who gets funded for these grants? So normally grantors are looking for organizations or individuals who are able to exhibit an individual or humanity or human benefit or a social benefit. Usually it's either commissioning or presenting art, delivering art to underserved communities or audiences, marginalized groups, senior citizens, veterans, the disabled, low income. And then also there's segments for preserving and propagating individual art forms. So if you are able to exhibit innovation, service, and or teaching, you have a very strong possibility of obtaining a grant. It really depends on your presentation and how it's read by the grantor. Okay. Next up, where to find grant opportunities. So at the local level, particularly here in the DMV, you have, it might come in form of different names. So the first and foremost, you want to start at your city or town that you're in. They might be called either the Arts Council or Council on the Arts. Also, it might be called a Cultural Alliance Group, Office of the Arts and Culture, or an Art Commission. I had the opportunity to actually sit on the panels for DC DC Community Humanities Commission, as well as Virginia Commission and City of Alexandria, to be on a panel where basically I got to review grants. So those, again, these are the typical names that they will follow, both at the local and or state level. So those are the ones you want to start with first. All right, next slide, please. Now, where can you find grant opportunities at the national level? So there is no larger, in my opinion, group than the National Endowment for the Arts. The metaphor that I like to give for the NEA is like the NEA is the parent and the local and state level are the children. If the NEA basically obtains, every year they are having to negotiate and lobby for their existence from the federal government in order to obtain funds. And those funds are then made available in the form of grants to local, state, and individuals. Basically, long story short, if the NEA does not receive funding, the states and the local governments also do not receive funding. So I'm going to put my advocacy hat on for those of you that are active in the community or want to learn more. I highly recommend being more active in the arts because it's very necessary. Every year, they are literally on the chopping block and have to lobby for themselves for their existence. They provide assistance in all forms of art, whether it's literary, performing, visual, new media. They provide programming for, again, at the local and state level. In addition to them, we also have the federal grant programs that are also available. And then you also have private corporations or foundations. These are typically companies or private individuals or states that will provide, through their foundation, will provide grants to artists or arts organizations. Some that you might be familiar with in this area is the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation. Another is the Cafferts Foundation, or the Morris and Gwendolyn Cafferts Foundation, and Ford Foundation. But there's several others, too many to list here, but just to get you started.
Elizabeth, before you move, well, can you expand the slideshow? That way it's a bit easier to see in case folks have smaller screens.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on. Sadly, I can't see unless I move the...
Yeah, you can actually minimize us.
Yeah, okay, will do.
All right.
And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the Ask a Question portion on your lower right-hand corner, and we will address it at the end of the presentation.
Now, this is strange. It's not optimizing. Okay, I'm going to go back to share my screen.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
That's
it was worth
fine.
a shot.
I got my glasses.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was worth a shot.
nice.
Yeah, I was.
No, it's
there.
You're in
okay.
good
Oh,
company.
there you go.
Yeah,
There you
we
go.
Okay.
All right,
Oh,
and you
perfect.
guys will have to watch the
Perfect.
chat and the questions because all I can see is the slides.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so when you're applying for a grant, a couple of things that you want to begin to prepare or think about. So I like to call this the who, what, when, where, and why, and of course how. You want to be able to address who you are, whether as an individual or as an organization, and who you're servicing. Who is your target audience? Next is the what. What type of grantee are you? Are you applying as an individual or as an organization? But with either one, you want to be able to establish or be able to present your mission, your vision, and your goals, what your project is, what will the funds be used for. You want to be very specific. What is the impact of your project, and what is your experience? So basically, in the form of a resume. And then lastly, what is your goal? The when is also important. I mean, granted, in this time that we're in now, when will the project take place or occur? Where will the project take place? You want to make sure that if it's particularly indoor, that it is accessible and it's compliant with all federal regulations so that, it's not limiting to the general public. You want to be able to address why do you need funding and why is your project necessary? And then for the how, it's how do you plan to execute the project? In my experience, most grantors do not fund your project at 100%. And so you want to make sure that you plan for that. Grantors like to see a diversified funding stream. So if you are applying for a grant, you don't want to be solely dependent on that one grant. You want to make sure that you're showing that you have reached out to individual donors, to foundations, to the state, to local. Maybe you've done crowdfunding. Maybe, they want to see all of that. And then, of course, if you are to receive partial funding, will you still be able to execute that project? And so you want to address that. I mean, even if the grant application does not ask for that, if you are willing to provide that information, it's definitely you get kudos for that. How many people will be served by this project or event? How will you market your project? So these are the things that you want to begin thinking about, and we're going to go into detail later on in the slides. Next slide.
Rochelle,
Yes.
Rochelle, would you like to open up your poll tab and see the answers to the newbie?
Oh, okay, great. Yes, we could do that actually at this point. Yes. Okay, so for experience and grants. Okay, so we have a lot of veterans here. Okay, so awarded, we have about 63% have been awarded. Several of you have applied. And then we have a couple of newbies. Okay, so we have a good mixed bag. So a lot of you guys, I know I'm probably speaking to the choir, but I just want to give a broad sense. And for those of you that have been awarded, unfortunately, it's not always a guarantee each and every time. So you want to make sure, I'm hoping that this information that we're sharing with you is helpful. The next slide is from the Americans for the Arts. It is a little dated. It's from 2015, but it still stands true. These are just an example to provide you with grants to artists and organizations, and just to see how much funding from local arts agencies are granted to sorry about that, are granted to both organizations and individual artists. Now, because it's so competitive with individual artists, the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about possibly partnering. So if we could go to the next slide, Liz. Okay, partnerships. So for some of you, either you're just starting out or maybe you already have an established relationship with a nonprofit organization. You might want to consider partnering with a nonprofit. For individual artists as well as organizations just starting out who may not have the financial history or backing, you may want to consider going with a fiscal sponsor. And basically, a fiscal sponsor is a nonprofit organization that provides fiduciary oversight, basically financial management. So how that would work is you as the individual organization would apply for the grant. However, prior to, you would establish a relationship with a financial sponsor, a fiscal sponsor, who will provide all of the financial data and information that is required from the grant. If awarded, those funds are then transferred to your fiscal sponsor. They'll take their administrative fee and then will award you the rest of the balance from that. And so that might be one consideration. One of the most popular ones that I've heard of is Fractured Atlas. They're a good one. Here are some examples of some partnerships. Let's say you're a videographer and you partner with a food pantry to document and interview staff and recipients. So how this partnership would work is, again, the nonprofit organization who is eligible to apply for the grant would apply for the grant. They would list you as either an independent contractor who will provide services. Your fee would be included in their budget. And if awarded, they would pay you that way. So that's an example of some partnerships. Another one is, let's say you're a choreographer and you partner with a nonprofit assisted living community to offer movement classes. So again, you may not be eligible for certain grant programs as an individual, but by partnering with a nonprofit organization, you can obtain funding that way. Another example is visual artists that partners with a public housing development and provides artwork in their lobby or public spaces. So I pose to you all, what do you see? And you could enter this in the chat feature. What do you see are some pros or cons with partnering with a nonprofit group? And if you have experience with partnering, what has been your experience? So if you could enter that in the chat field, and we'll revisit that. I'll continue on, but I just wanted to pose some questions to you all, because there definitely are some pros and cons of doing that. Okay. Now, in preparation, you want to make sure you want to collect these required items ahead of time. What I would recommend is scanning, taking photocopies of these documents and filing them away, either digitally or if you want to have hard copy, and then scan it to provide it digitally later. A lot of grants now have moved away from paper and are doing online applications, but just to have, because just about every grantor is going to ask for tax ID, your general driver's license. If you plan to work or have done work with the federal government or at the government level, they may require you to have what's called a DUNS number. You want to also be able to provide them with tax information and proof of residency. Now, examples of proof of residency, because in my experience, this has been very confusing for folks. They think they just can give their driver's license. A lot of times they want to see proof of residency in a form of a utility bill, whether it's electric, a water bill, because usually it shows like a history of the past 12 months of your residency associated with that address. So if you have those items, again, start collecting them and putting them away, storing them, because more than likely you will be needing them. Next is you want to prepare a digital portfolio, whether you're a visual artist or performing artist. You want to have your resume, high quality audio and or visual work samples, list of professional arts activities and achievement. If you have letters of support, if you have letters from the government or from an executive director or from a partnership, these are all supplementary materials that can be used to help support your application and strengthen your application. Next, you want to prepare a narrative. Basically, what is your story? You want to share what is your drive, what is your experience, what is your inspiration. Next, you want to prepare a project overview. If you're applying for a project support grant or for a specific project, what does it look like from beginning to end? You want to also prepare a budget, including income and expenses. You want to list, you want to itemize all of your expenses in order to make your project feasible. And then you also want to list the income. Where is the money coming from? And it can't be just pulled from the sky. You want to be able to address and show that you apply to local arts agencies, to corporations, to individual donors, et cetera, et cetera. whether it's ticket sales, things of that nature. Next, you want to prepare a marketing and communications plan. Please, please, please don't say, oh, I'm going to just promote on Facebook and Instagram. You want to provide as much detail and specifics. What does that look like? So marketing plan could be, okay, yes, you're going to apply and post on Instagram and Facebook, but how are you going to utilize that? Are you doing it at a specific time? What tags, hashtags will you be utilizing? What images will you be using? What time frame is it during the day? Based on, and these are all information you can obtain from looking at your analytics that is available to you both on Instagram and Facebook. So again, you want to be concise in providing as much detail as for how you're going to go about doing it. And it just makes sense to have this ahead of time because you want to make sure that you don't have to rethink the wheel. You already have that ready to go. Next, you want to have create a work plan to include your tasks. I personally love to use work plans. You could also use Trello or some other tool or a spreadsheet. Basically, you're going to list all your tasks, responsible party if you're working with a team, what their responsibilities are, your start date, end date, status. Is it pending? Has it been completed? Has it not started? And any notes that you have. It just basically keeps you on task. And lastly, you want to research any grants that are specific to your medium, whether it's dance, choreography, writing, film, music, etc. You want to make sure that you are reaching out to those grantors who provide those specific grant opportunities. And how do you do that? Is by being active in the arts community. Okay, I see here. So from cons, we have, yes, Fractured Atlas. It was a great partner, and a lot of artists use them. They're based in New York, but they are available nationwide. What ways can composers partner? So composers, I'll let my artist musician husband answer that one. You want to address that one?
Yeah, sure. A lot of times when you are in music, I oftentimes will reach out to different organizations or schools who sometimes don't offer a lot of music related programming. And so just having a conversation with these different organizations to see what they're missing, and then offering everything from like a potential like music writing class to possibly offering lessons in a specific instrument. It could be a wide range of stuff when it comes to music, maybe helping them prepare for a performance. I mean, there's a wide range of things, but oftentimes that I find the best route to figure out what to offer is by having a conversation to figure out what people are missing to begin with, especially in a place or setting where they absolutely should be offering some type of creative programming. So that's my advice for that.
Right. And then some cons, which is definitely true, is changing programming multiple hands. In the pot, they might say one thing in the grant and then, or maybe they received reduced funding. And so they're no longer able to do what they want to do. So again, you want to weigh the pros and cons. I highly recommend if you already have an established relationship with the organization, I wouldn't do cold call to a group that you don't have a relationship with. Yes, competing priorities is another definite con. But yeah, I would definitely want to make sure that you reach out to someone that you already have an existing relationship with. And we'll follow back up with this. I know now we're going to transition into crowdfunding. But yeah, we will definitely circle back as we get more time.
And remember, you can add any questions that you have by clicking the Ask a Question tab, and we'll definitely circle back to you. All right, so we're going to get into crowdfunding. We have a lot of experience with crowdfunding, a lot of success. We can go ahead to the first tab. All right. Liz, you can go ahead and move to the next tab, please.
I see our experience with crowdfunding. Is that not it?
No, it's not showing on the screen. It's still showing just the general crowdfunding tab.
I see what is crowdfunding on mine. Let's see what's
okay. Maybe there's a delay on our end.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. All right, it's back now.
Yay!
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, so for those of you who may not be clear what crowdfunding is, it's defined as the practice of funding a project or venture by raising many small amounts of money from a large number of people, typically via the internet. And for a lot of folks who don't know, it's it seems like a recent thing. It's been around roughly for about 12 years now. It's one of the many things that was signed off on during the Obama administration. All right, next slide. So, a bit about us. Our experience with crowdfunding is primarily reward-based crowdfunding. However, we do have experience with donor-based campaigns as well. Our current success rate out of 9 campaigns is roughly 78%. Most of our past campaigns were funded in 2 weeks or less. That's ourselves and clients included. We've raised nearly $40,000 through crowdfunding for ourselves as an organization and as individuals. And we've helped others raise nearly $450,000 through crowdfunding. And we usually use anything from Kickstarter, Indiegogo to GoFundMe, Patreon, and something called crates for the musicians here, which allows you to crowdfund vinyl records. All right, next slide. So again, our experience is typically has been with reward-based crowdfunding. That's probably the most popular or close to the most popular type of crowdfunding, which is the Kickstarters of the world, and of course Indiegogo. It's probably the most known type of crowdfunding there is. However, there's also donor-based crowdfunding, which a lot of people have seen through GoFundMe campaigns. We've seen it for some good causes and some well-deserving causes, and sometimes in times of where people are in dire need of like help due to illness and a wide variety of other things. But a lot of people aren't familiar with equity-based crowdfunding. You basically can offer equity in your business to not just a few potential donors, but multiple folks. And as opposed to them putting up one large sum, you may be able to get a pool of potential investors that basically pool their money together to help crowdfund your venture. There's also debt-based crowdfunding. I like to explain that kind of, it's basically crowdfunding if it was a credit card with way better interest. So, so that is another form of crowdfunding as well. So we can go to the next one. All right. And this is just a variety of crowdfunding sites you can check out. Some of these are really good. Some are not so great. It's simply a list to just show you what's out there. However, I will say, due to new information I've received in the last few months from the reward-based crowdfunding section, I would strike off Pledge Music. They've received a lot of bad press in the last year or so. So I wouldn't recommend them personally. Also, something to note that if you decide to go with Kickstarter or Patreon, just keep in mind that your campaign is subject to approval, which means there could be a delay in the time that you submit for approval and when they sign off. If you're a filmmaker, a really great reward-based crowdfunding site to check out is Seed and Spark. It's not just great for crowdfunding, it's also great for potential passive income because they operate not just as a they operate as a way to not only crowdfund your film or television show, but also you can offer it through their streaming service as well. And then again, these are just a wide variety of other sites you can check out for donor-based, equity-based, and debt-based as well. All right, next slide. Okay. And this is just kind of a breakdown of like where the money typically goes on these sites. Kickstarter and Indiegogo, of course, are the two biggest ones. If you are a filmmaker, Indiegogo would probably be your best option simply because Indiegogo was started with the film community. It was first launched at Sundance a very long time ago. And so when you look at their site, you see that 45% of the money that is contributed on their site goes to films typically. However, on Kickstarter, even though it's only 26%, it's still the lion's share of most of the money that's contributed. But they're also great. Kickstarter is also great for writing and music as well. They actually have a section that focuses on people who are specifically trying to crowdfund vinyl. So they do highlight certain things and just a wide variety of other projects that you could potentially fund using these sites. Next slide, please. And again, if you have any questions at any moment, please use the Ask a Question tab and we'll circle back to you. So just a quick to-do list. Please do your research. No matter how original you think your idea is, the likelihood that someone else has thought of the same thing is always high. So definitely do your research. It's likely that there are, at least a few similar campaigns on whatever potential site that you choose to use. So you can see how they performed. You can try to see what their flaws are. You can see what things worked really well for them. Write your story. Similar to grants, story matters. Like the better your story is, the better it's told, the likelihood that you will create buy-in. Make sure you create a task schedule and a calendar just to figure out what your plan is going to be for your campaign. Try to figure out like what the next few weeks will look like, what will be posted when, who's responsible for what, so on and so forth. Even if you're an individual doing this, this is something you should absolutely do. Make sure you're using the right tools and services. There's a wide variety of companies that offer services to help you with your campaign. I don't necessarily recommend that you automatically go and try that. However, if you don't feel comfortable and you feel like you need assistance, there are companies out there who help. But when I say the right tools, it's just really looking at what social media platforms are working really well for you. Making sure that you invest a lot of time in leveraging those and other tools that you use for promotion to help your business. They can absolutely help you with your crowd funding campaign as well. Make sure you build the team. No person's an island. So, you absolutely want to make sure that if there are other people involved with the creative process of the thing that you're trying to fund, that you communicate with them and make sure you get assistance. And everyone should have some type of responsibility. Who's handling emails and messages through the services? Who's handling social media promotion? Who's budgeting? Who's just documenting the entire process. Make sure you link with influencers. If you have, and it's not even a matter if, everyone has influencers in their network. They just oftentimes don't tap into it. So you want to communicate with the influencers that you know in your network, or just ask around for any potential folks in your network who may be interested in helping your campaign, not just backing your campaign, but helping you promote it. Take advantage of social media. We mentioned before, looking at your analytics is crucial. Prepare your media pack, create different graphics that basically are branded and create a certain theme to tell the story of your campaign. Create reward tiers. You don't want to just go in there offering like 3 tiers, right? Saying, all right, if you donate to this level, then you get this, and then you only have 2 more levels. You can have a wide range of levels, going from as cheap as $1 to $5, all the way up to thousands of dollars, depending on what your project is. And you'd be surprised. I've seen people contribute $1. I've seen people contribute $2,000 on the last day of a campaign that was already funded. Prepare your media pack, create reward tiers, film a high quality story. You don't necessarily need to go out and purchase a camera. If you own a smartphone, the likelihood that your smartphone already films at 1080p or 4K is extremely high. So just go ahead and purchase a tripod and make it happen. All right. Launch your campaign and make sure you prepare stretch goals. Next slide. So survey your potential backers. That's a big recommendation. Regardless of what you think, you want to give people, like based on the campaign you're running, you should absolutely survey the people who are going to be giving you their money. just to see what it is when they think of the idea, when they think of the project, what it is they actually want related to the project. Okay. Also, live events to launch and promote the campaign are great ways to see a lot of success very quickly. So that could look like in this time, in the time of COVID-19, you don't necessarily have to launch a physical event, right? You don't have to have a physical event. However, you can have an online event. You could do something through Zoom. You could do something through one of these platforms to launch your campaign. However, as we adjust to our new normal and things do open back up, I do recommend that if you can have an actual event at a physical place to launch what you're doing, or if you're going to be at a conference of some sort, that's a great time to launch your campaign. Publicly thank your backers in real time as you get donations, especially if part of the process is you're collecting their social media information. It's a great non-spammy way to promote your campaign. Make sure that if you have old inventory, that is something that you offer through your campaign. It's a great way to keep your budget down. Now you only have to worry about shipping product as opposed to manufacturing it as well. Always add at least another 15 to 20% on top of your budget just to cover the platform fees and any potential failed pledges, because sometimes people offer to pledge for a campaign, but they use a card that may be expiring soon. It's not intentional. I can't speak for them, but that does happen. And I've seen we've personally experienced a loss of like roughly usually between 10 to 15%. So I always tell people to cover that by adding 15 to 20% on top, just in case. Whatever the total number of people in your network, basically only expect 5 to 10% of them to contribute. On average, the bulk of most campaign backers usually contribute between $10 to $75. So that's on average just under $45. With that, and a network of roughly 1,000 people, with 5% of them contribute to an average of $45, you could raise just over $2,200 in theory, and potentially $4,500 if only 10% of them contribute. So definitely keep that in mind. And when I say your network, I'm not just talking about your email list or who follows you online. Make calls, text people, whatever you got to do to achieve your goal. And the better your rewards, the better your options, the better chances of reaching your goal. So just keep all of those things in mind, and we can keep it moved to the next slide.
Get into passive.
Yes, let's talk about passive income. All right. So for those who maybe don't fully understand what passive income is, it's basically money earned with little or no effort. One of the most common forms of passive income that most people know of is through rental properties, and it's typically earned without you having to physically be present, which is a great thing in these times. So as creative entrepreneurs, there's a wide range of things that you can do to earn passive income. Next slide. So these are just some ideas for some of the visual and performing artists here. If you haven't considered doing an ebook or audiobook, it's definitely something worth checking out. We've actually listed the names of the sites that you can use. So you can just do a Google search to find the Amazon Kindle Direct publishing platform or Audible's ACX platform. If you're a person with a certain amount of experience and expertise, you can make an ebook or audiobook. There are people who are actively seeking knowledge on certain things, and an audiobook is one of the easiest ways to gather that information. Kits and sample packs. So I see there were composers and musicians here. There are a lot of people like myself who aren't classically trained. However, I am a music producer and I do play the keyboard a bit, but I'd much rather be working with or sampling people who play far better than me. So that being said, sample packs is a great thing that you can create for producers, not just in hip hop, but in a wide range of genres, where they can go to these sites, they pay a monthly subscription, and they get access to a library of sounds that they can utilize. But that is not limited to musicians. If you're a voice actor, you could be a vocal percussionist. You could be a lot of different things, and you ultimately could create a sample pack that you could offer through these sites. You can offer it through your own website where people could pay to download a zip folder with these sounds, or you could go through something like Rightsify, which adds the pack to all of a wide range of sites that people are already familiar with. But it's a great way to earn passive income. You can also offer online classes. This is a great time to do that, considering some people are at home with a lot of time on their hands. If you haven't started offering online classes, I highly recommend that you consider that. You can use sites like Skillshare or Teachable, and there's a wide range of other ones as well. Again, for my musician folks, if you're a person of a certain age, as I stroke the wisdom in my beard, if you're a person of a certain age, I find that typically musicians of a certain age who aren't very familiar with the new music industry think streaming is a bad thing. However, streaming, when done right, it's a great source of passive income. In fact, it's the reason I was able to leave my full-time job and ultimately be able to run our business full-time and to be a full-time musician. So, there's definitely a wide range of things you can look into to help you with that. But think of it like this. A good amount of musicians are spending time trying to get people to follow them on social media platforms when they should be trying to get people to follow them on the sites that offer their music for streaming. Because a lot of these sites automatically notify people, whether you email them or not, they notify them that you have new music available. And so it becomes passive income as you start to build your fan base. And that's absolutely a great way to earn more money. Subscription-based model is the wave. This is what so many companies are doing, whether we're talking about Adobe, or we're just talking about your local artists. But websites like Bandcamp for musicians and Patreon for any type of creative have moved toward offering, not in Patreon's case, they've always done it, but Bandcamp in the last few years moved to subscription-based model. So that's definitely something to look into. It just helps with budgeting. Like, being able to see that I'm gonna get this amount of money and I'll be able to cover a bill with this, or I'll be able to cover rent with this, the car note, so on and so forth. And then, of course, YouTube monetization. If you are on YouTube, you can earn money through advertising revenue, channel membership, once you have 30,000 plus subscribers, or if you are also a gamer, right? For those of you here who dabble in gaming, you only need 1,000 subscribers actually to have channel membership if you're promoting gaming. For those of you who want to offer merchandise, have a shelf of merchandise on your site, you need at least 10,000 subscribers to get to that point. And then they have super chat and super sticker features along with YouTube premium revenue. And it seems like you got to get a lot of subscribers to do that. It's not as hard as you think, as long as you are consistent with the videos you're creating, you're using the right tags, and you are doing a great job just making sure you stay consistent and promoting what you're doing on a daily basis. Planning's everything. Next slide. All right. Next slide. Yep, there we go. Okay. Merchandise, of course. A lot of you are part of organizations which I'm sure offer some type of t-shirt, coffee mug, or something on your website. And if you're not, you need to go ahead and set that up. Most websites nowadays come equipped with e-commerce for just a slightly different price. You should absolutely add that to your repertoire. And of course, sites like Etsy allow you to sell merchandise as well. But one of the things you can do, if you're not an organization that has physical merchandise, what you can do is you can use print on demand sites such as Printify, Printful, Redbubble, Shopify, and a long list of others to offer physical merchandise through your store without ever having to manufacture or make it yourself. In fact, in most cases, you don't even have to put money up front. You basically just charge a price that will cover the cost of creating it. And then you collect a commission as well. And if you're a visual artist and you're offering stuff through these sites, some of these sites actually have a marketplace as well, where you can make some of your art available to other people who are creating products, and you would get a commission for that. You can also consider renting out your artwork for my visual artists. You can rent it out to different organizations, school districts, and a long list of other places Hopefully you have some relationships as well, rather than having them pay you hundreds or thousands of dollars for your one original piece. You can basically create an agreement that allows them to rent it for based on a weekly rate, a daily rate, monthly rate, and then make sure that the project, the piece is insured, so that if something happens, you're covered, or they have to buy it out. But it's a great way to just make additional income and stretch the money that you make off the one piece of art. Also consider stock images and video, making those available through Adobe Stock, Getty Images, iStock Photo, and Shutterfly, and a long list of other places. It's another great way to earn passive income. And then also sync licensing. That's placing music and TV, film, and video games. And I apologize for any folks who feel like, there's a lot of concentration on music and visual art, but that's our background. Our company is called Substantial Art and Music. So that's our specialty. However, there are plenty things that we've listed that there's plenty of wiggle room for several of the various creatives that we have here. All right. And that completes passive income. I know I'm a minute over. I apologize. But let's get into this Q&A. Next slide. And so the question that I always, or the statement I always make, because I've worked as an educator for quite some time as well, is you are as smart as the questions you think to ask and the research you are willing to do. So let's jump into some of these questions, and hopefully we can knock them all out before we go.
Okay, so we addressed that one.
All right, so slides have been made full screen. You are welcome. For equity-based crowdfunding, how do you manage the ownership the donors have in your venture going forward? Do you pay them actual dividends? So it varies from site to site. So honestly, you would have to just take a look at the different sites that I listed, and any other sites that you come across, and just do a bit of research, because and again, keep in mind that our experience is mostly with reward-based and donor-based. We are aware of these other companies and these other options, but it's not something we have a lot of experience with. But I definitely recommend just taking the time to do some research. A lot of times you can do a Google search that basically lists this site versus this site, and they will compare it and usually provide a spreadsheet of some sort breaking down the different information offered on the sites and compare it side by side. Are crowdfunding donations tax deductible if our organization? Absolutely.
Yeah. You would, in that case, you would have just to make sure that you provide the donor with your tax receipt, granted, and just to check in with your personal accountant, as tax rules do change every year. So typically, to answer the question, yes, but again, you want to check with your accountant or CPA to confirm.
Yes. And the link was already for the next question. Can we get these resources sent to us? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, so participants will have access to the recording, as well as after the conclusion of the session, someone from Maryland Arts will be reaching out to you with a Dropbox or Google Drive that we'll be providing them with a copy of this presentation, so that you'll have it for your personal use.
Got you. George, I believe I answered your question before about what ways a composer can partner. But again, just I would recommend definitely organizations that may be interested in songwriting classes, and just and being able to consult like the next generation of young musicians and potential composers. Like, it could be a combination of partnering with programs or large organizations that already have some type of music programming, and others that have little to none. So you can do as much as your imagination can pretty much come up with. But those few things I mentioned are great places to start. Yep, we answered that. Will the slides be available after presentation? Absolutely.
Yep, I just posted them again in the chat, the URL to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz.
Would you recommend crowdfunding as a whole for a project? Example, production of a project, advertising and promotion, live performance, etc. Or should crowdfunding be broken down into specific? So what I would suggest researching and I believe we know Taj. Hey, Taj. So it depends. Like if you're a musician, you could virtually fund the entire project. I mean, any type of person honestly could fund the entire project. In terms of cost that you're aware of ahead of time, right? Because you only can kind of plan for what you know of, right? There's always going to be additional costs, but you can absolutely fund an entire project on one of these crowdfunding platforms. I've seen people use it to raise a few hundred to a few $1,000s, and we've partnered with organizations who've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's you'd be surprised, but it really comes down to how much exposure you can get that project and what your network size is.
Right. And also I would just like to add that you really just goes back to what we were talking about grants and knowing your budget. Really itemize everything. Because like, for instance, if you're doing reward based and maybe you're giving out t-shirts or cups or whatever, you want to make sure you're planning for postage, for packaging, for shipping, handling. So you want to make sure that you've considered everything as far as its expenses go.
So the next question was, what is the best way to get started in sync licensing as an artist and producer? That's a great question. I believe in that section, I actually listed a few sites to check out. There's something else you can look up as well. If you search Sync Summit, the website that actually is responsible for the Sync Summit, or SyncCon,
Sync Summit.
Sync Summit. Okay, I got it right. If you look up the company that is responsible for the Sync Summit, you can actually become a member of their website, and they constantly make information available about different opportunities. And there is a ridiculous amount of websites just like that. What you can do is save yourself some time by checking out that one particular site and also just searching sync licensing websites like the best of, and you can find recommendations based on it. I bring up the Sync Summit company mainly because that's the one I've used, but also because of the fact they have a convention that I would suggest attending as we start to move into our new normal. I believe they've moved some information online strictly for people who are looking to get more info. And also another thing you can do is, if you are making music that is specific to a certain type of genre or thing, conventions of any type that are potentially related to the type of music you are making is a great way to network and meet people in that industry. And it was ultimately the way I was able to get music on a television show, by being at conventions and just rubbing elbows. So I always recommend that as well. And obviously, we gotta figure out a better way to do it with our current situation
going forward.
Yep. Is there a way to find angel investors for artists? That's a great question. Honestly, we don't have a lot of experience with that. But that's something that we can absolutely talk about. And peace to you, sis. I've recognized the name. And we can definitely talk you know how to contact us. And so definitely reach out and we can put our heads together and figure out a way. Because we definitely have a huge network of folks we can call and ask. And any way we can help, we will.
And also by attending, like Stan said before, attending different summits and conventions. You have a lot of potential investors. If you're a visual artist, gallery openings, museums, using your resources for different opportunities and in using those opportunities to network as well.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for that next comment. You guys look really good. What camera do you use for the webcast? We are using Logitech. I believe it is. Hold on.
We can send it to you.
Yeah, I can send that information. Yeah, I can check because I have the box. It's right over there. I'm forgetting the name. I know it's like a C something, but yeah, but the company is Logitech. And as far as mics that we're using, the company is AKG. That's the only type of microphone that I use. One is a podcasting mic. That's the P120, and the other one that I'm using because I'm a recording artist is actually the C214 for AKG.
All right. We're at
Hey, just a note that we're almost at the hour. We're at the hour.
Sure.
You might want to talk to everyone about how to address the other questions, etc.
Yeah, sure. So for the other questions, and I'm sorry we ran out of time, but you can our website is subartandmusic.com. I'll drop it in the chat here. But but definitely you can reach out and contact us through our website at any time. And we practically live in our email when we're not taking care of our family.
And any question that we didn't address, we'll write in the comments
Sure.
after, so
Absolutely.
that you can always go back to this video later. But yeah, if you do have any questions or want to reach out, we are available for consulting on like a plethora of services that we offer. So please, visit us at subartandmusic.com.
Yep, absolutely. And a quick announcement, on Monday, we are actually launching our first podcast. It's called Artistry. It's actually spelled like art and industry. If you got rid of
where art meets industry.
Love it.
So we're launching that on Monday, which will be available through our website and of course any platform that you can listen to podcasts. So that will be available. The first 2 episodes is an introduction to us to better get to know us. And we have a lot of different guests that will be on there over the next few months. And so thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. And we hope that it was very helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out. And thanks again to our co-host, Liz McLean, who
thanks guys. You're getting tons of love here on the chat. So I hope you take the time to go through
and guys so much.
Get to know everyone. All right. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.